Roll call, please.
Eaglin. Here. Courtney.
Here.
Carlo.
Here.
Board, you have the minutes from September the 7th. Any modifications or amendments to the minutes? If not, we'll have a motion to approve the minutes from that date.
I make a motion we approve the minutes of the September 7th meeting.
I'll second that motion.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you. We have a lot on the agenda today, quite a bit of new business, so let's get right to it. We have a request for 15-minute parking space at Liberty Screen Printing. Is Chief Wallace or anybody from MPD here to represent that? Okay. Let's table that. We have a street closing request for River Valley Community Church tent meeting. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sarah?
Yes.
Hi.
So, yeah, the same event, you have it there, correct? Like a
We do,
copy of it?
yes.
Okay, awesome. Same event we've done for the last 6 years, nothing's changed. So we'll have a tent at Centennial Park and everything's exactly the same as it's always been.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Do we have to close Vaughn Drive, or can you use just the parking lot south of Bicentennial and the Bicentennial Park? Is there a need to close Vaughn Drive 6 different evenings?
So, as long as it's not a safety concern for.
Well, if
this-
we had the city come down and put like barricades there at the parking, so would that work? I mean, the reason I'm saying that, there's so much traffic on Vaughn Drive, and that area now has been slowed down a lot because of the 4-way stop at West Street.
Yeah. No, as long as the city's not concerned, I mean, people that come in attendance to the meeting park all around there. And so as long as the city's not concerned about walking traffic during the event, because we're actually
You're on the north.
utilizing the stage in Bicentennial.
Yeah, you're on the north side of Vaughn Drive with most of your activities, aren't you?
Right, we are not actually in the street.
Okay, because you had street closings of from 6 to 10, Sunday through Friday. And to me, I mean, it's just such a area now that's so busy and popular with people here in Madison. I just hate to close it off if we just don't have to.
They leave the street open during Music in the Park.
Okay. Yeah.
Which has, you know, quite a large attendance and food trucks, and I think board member Eaglin's points are good ones.
Okay,
That we can do it safely and still reserve the space for you.
okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
That'd be okay?
Yes,
Great. Appreciate you
all right.
doing that for us. So I would move to, I'm not sure the resolution number.
That resolution has not been read. I don't know if you, I mean, it's something that we've covered before, so it doesn't necessarily have to. I can try to spare my cohort here.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I would move to go ahead and accept it with the exception of closing Vaughn Drive off
Okay.
for those evenings.
We're okay with that, as long as you guys are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. Do you want to read the resolution, council over there?
Yes.
And what this number will be?
This is resolution number 58, and it's a resolution of the Board of Public Works regarding a street closing for River Valley Community Church, whereas there's been a request filed on behalf of the River Valley Community Church for street closing in connection with River Valley Community Church tent meeting to be held on October 10th through October 15th this year. And then, I guess I'll read it as it's presented, and you'll kind of.
Yeah, let me point of order here. I'm not even sure we need to address the resolution if we're not closing the street.
There's nothing being closed.
No.
Yes.
No, but it can just be withdrawn.
Okay, if that's okay, and then we'll just coordinate with the street department, Sarah, to make sure that we get whatever barricades are needed down there, just to alert the fact that the street is open, but except for maybe the parking just adjacent to Bicentennial, which would be a good buffer area for you.
Correct, yeah, if we could do that, that would be great.
Okay.
That way, in case anyone needs to for getting equipment in and out or
Yeah.
things like that.
And like I said, the traffic there has slowed down quite a bit with the
Okay.
4-way stop, so.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Sarah. Thank you very much. So we'll make sure the street department knows that we're just gonna reserve that parking area on the south side of Bicentennial as a buffer.
I'll let Gina know.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a street closing for Trinity United Methodist Church trunk or treat. Reverend Walker, welcome.
Thank you.
That's 59. I'll keep that one.
Let's go ahead and have council read this resolution, if that's okay, and we'll discuss it.
Resolution 59, resolution of the Board of Public Works regarding street closure for the Trinity United Methodist Church annual trunk or treat event. Whereas there's been a request filed by Reverend Deb Walker on behalf of Trinity United Methodist Church for a street closure in connection with their annual trunk or treat event for children to be held on Sunday, October 24th, 2021. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Public Works and Safety of the City of Madison, Indiana, that both sides of Broadway Street running north and south between Main Street and 3rd Street shall be closed from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Sunday, October 24th, 2021. Be it further resolved by the Board of Public Works and Safety of the City of Madison, Indiana, that said street as closed shall be under the supervision and control of the Trinity United Methodist Church at the times noted above for the year 2021.
Tell us a little bit about the event. I'm very familiar with it because my wife and I volunteer down there, and it's been very well attended. So
It's very well attended. We're planning on doing the same COVID guidelines where we are today, moving as the dashboard moves. There'll be a single entrance, be one-way walking traffic, hopefully one way. We'll have several trunks that are open. We'll be giving out food, and we have fire trucks there. And last year, I was trying to find my notes, I think we had over 400 kids, 700 people go through it. It's an annual event. It's always the Sunday before Halloween, which is on a Sunday this year, to keep us away from other activities.
I think it's a great event. Are you or are you not doing the haunted house this year?
Probably not, again, because it's going to be closed. It's a closed-in space in a basement, and the breathing. So no, right now it's not. Now, if we open up, the COVID goes away, then we might do that.
Okay.
We're even discussing whether we're going to feed inside or outside, again, depending on COVID, air handling.
Okay. Board, any questions?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 59-2021.
I'll second David's motion.
Any additional discussion? Any comments from anyone in the audience? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Earl Walker, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to invite our Director of Building and Planning. I think that's what we're calling Nicole now.
Good morning. Got a bunch of PACE items for you. Start with applications. First application for approval is for Hong Kong Kitchen, 102 East Main Street. They're working on their windows and adding storm windows. Their grant amount is for $7,500. Second application is for Mark Venturna, 923 West Main Street. He is working on replacing his vinyl windows with aluminum clad, fixing his porch, and repairing the wood windows. His grant amount is for $7,500. Third application is for Richard and Julie Burscher, 411 St. Michael's. They are working on their siding, fascia, and soffit, as well as their windows. Their grant amount is for $7,500. Next application is Meredith Heights, 509 West Main Street. She's working on the glass portion of her front door, shutters, and tuck pointing. Her grant amount is for $3,700. Next application is Marilyn Mcqueen, 525 West 3rd Street. She's working on tuck pointing. Her grant amount is for $3,600. The next application was filed by Rodney Pettit, for 901 West 1st Street. He's working on replacing the vinyl siding with LP Smart siding. The grant amount is for $7,500. Next application is Catherine Trueblood, 921 West Main Street. She's working on this 2-story porch. It's pulling away from the structure and is causing some structural issues with the front and roof. So her grant amount is $17,500. And the final application is Ronald Frazee, 703 West Street. He's doing extensive work on this building, everything from tuck pointing, removing the rear addition and rebuilding it, and windows, doors, really everything on the
I
exterior.
think you can pretty much just say everything.
Yeah.
To save the
Yep.
structure.
Yep, and so the grant amount for this is $25,000.
So one of these structures is dilapidated relative to what the applications are we're talking about today?
Two are dilapidated.
Oh, okay.
This one is dilapidated, and the one before that, Catherine Trueblood, her porch issues has caused her building to be dilapidated.
2 dilapidated and 2 in target areas. Total grant amount approximately $80,000. Private investment $364. Are we capturing all of the investment, or is that pretty much just what you're looking for in determining the leverage for the amount of grant that they're requesting from us?
Most of that is just determining the leverage. The only one who included more than required was Ronald Frazee.
Okay.
He included his total.
So I want to start capturing everything because, you know, this PACE grant program is working very, very well, and it's creating a leverage ratio for our investment that is pretty significant. I think the last report you gave, it might have been close to 3.5 to 1. When you include all of the work that's being done on the structure as part of our PACE grant program, that leverage ratio is just going to go up, and the size of the private investment, the amount of the private investment is extremely significant, and it's working really, really well. Nicole, can you mention where we are with regards to funding dollars before we go take action on this one?
Yep, so funding dollars, if you approve all of these applications, the funding for the entire city limits is at 0. We have about 60,000 left for target areas or dilapidated structures.
Okay. And that's after the redevelopment commission's committing an additional $250,000 for
Yes.
this year? Okay.
Mhm.
The 703 West Street is listed as commercial. Is it commercial or is it residential?
It's
Oh,
a
well.
commercial structure. It had previously been used as residential. The current owners are not sure what they're going to use the structure
I was just
for.
curious on what, because
Yeah, the potential uses for that structure they have mentioned are all commercial.
Is this the Eureka Lodge that
It
we've been
is.
talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so it's got a lot of historical significance for the community too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Great to say that. I make a motion, we approve the PACE grant applications.
I'll second that motion.
Any additional discussion? Any comments, questions from the audience? Program's working as planned. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. All right, Nicole, you're going into
Yep, I have 2
One part here.
midpoint reports. I apologize, I don't have photos of these. They're not required as part of the midpoint report, and since it's raining, I didn't get out today to take those. But the first one is Miss Prime, 112 East 3rd Street. She's doing tuck pointing on that building as well as working on the louver. She's more than 50% complete. Her grant request for this half is $3,251.71. And the second midpoint is Mr. Greeno at 1026 West Main Street. He's working on his front porch. The roof of that has been completed, but he still needs to do the rest of the work. But it is 50% complete, so his amount is $475. Those are the 2 midpoints.
I'll move that we approve the applications for payments for midpoint on 112 East 3rd and 1026 West Main Street.
I'll second that motion.
Any additional discussion? Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Okay, final payments.
First final payment is for Richard and Kathy Taylor. Address is 1010 West Main Street. As you can see before, there was no siding on the structure. So that's what they did with PACE. It is complete according to their PACE grant, and so their request is for the full $7,500.
Looks great.
The next one is for Donald Barber, Barwell. The address is 624 East 2nd Street. He worked on this carriage house behind his building. As you can see, a lot of tuck pointing issues, missing windows. And it has been completed according to his PACE grant. He's will receive the full amount of $7,500.
That building actually faces Baltimore, right?
I believe
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's on.
His residence is on.
That's why I was looking for that.
Yep.
Okay. Great, these are really unique buildings, and there's not very many of these carriage houses around town.
You did a great job. The final PACE grant is for Cynthia Bellamy, 409 East 3rd Street. This is was one of our first elaborated structures. They did everything from siding, electrical, floor joists, really everything on this building. And it was completed according to their PACE grant. They have already received half the funds, so this request would be for $10,085.50.
Is the interior finished on this as relative to ready to be occupied?
For the PACE, yes, I believe they've got a few more odds and ends, cabinetry, that kind of thing, but it is done with PACE.
I make a motion we approve the finals on the PACE for those 3 properties.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any additional discussion from anyone? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
And I have one PACE extension for Derek Hughes at 411 Jefferson Street, and she's asking for an extension of 1 month and 18 days. Her new deadline would be September 30th, 2021. She has received part of her $7,500 grant. We had been working with her on her paint colors, which delayed her project.
Is she going to go to a different paint thing?
As far as I know, she is not.
Nicole, have we already approved an extension for this?
You had approved an extension, I believe, twice on hers,
We-
but not to the full extent. She still has several months she could ask for an extension on.
I just wondered about, this extension is gonna expire the 30th of,
Yeah, she should be complete by then. It came in while I was on vacation and I didn't get on the last Board of Works agenda.
I was just wondering why she asked for such a short extension.
She said she'll be done before then. I asked if she wanted to go longer and she said no.
Okay.
And I'm sure it's that she just wants to follow the procedures and make sure that she doesn't place the PACE grant in jeopardy.
Right.
And we did have some back and forth with her on the colors. And we had asked her to consider different colors, which she did. And that became a bit problematic of us going back and forth on what would be an acceptable color. Our PACE guidelines do not regulate paint color. And so I actually made the decision to just, they stopped the dialogue about paint color because we really weren't prepared to deal with it in the PACE guidelines, and that's where it really needs to start.
I'll make a motion, we extend pace for 411 Jefferson Street.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, Main Street project and traffic maintenance plan. Mindy?
Good morning, Board. You have in your packet a summary of information. This discussion is in relation to specifically the change in striping in the 6-block section from Broadway to Craigmont. And I've summarized for you on the first page just sort of a brief history of how we got to suggesting this change and the steps that we have taken, so everyone understands we have not done it lightly. So just as a quick summary, I'm not going to read to you. We have done several different types of engagement with the public. We have had various public meetings with the public directly, specifically to talk about this. We've also talked about it many times at Common Council meetings and Board of Public Works and Safety meetings. We have had traffic studies done, both by a professional traffic engineering firm and also by using some data that NDOT does on traffic studies on the same stretch of road. We have collected accident data from the police department to look for the last 10 years about accident data in that section of road. And then because of the long-term Main Street revisioning project, we had hired Ratio Architects to help with that. They formed a steering committee of, I think there's 15 to 18 people on it. So we've actively engaged with that steering committee, looking at data, traffic counts, and patterns. And they, as a part of that steering committee and Ratio Architects, conducted stakeholder interviews with, I don't know, I think we gave them a list of 50 to 75 people to reach out to. Not all of those people returned phone calls or provided feedback, but they have quite a bit of feedback from people as well. In general, it was a pretty consistent feedback that traffic calming was desired on Main Street. And at the public meeting that we hosted, both of those, there was, and by the way, there is a Exhibit B that I have in your packet, is a listing of all of the written comments that we received at that public meeting. People were asked to submit their comments, concerns, questions on cards, and we collected those at the end. All of those comments are listed for you on Exhibit B, as well as a list of all the attendees. And I can tell you at those two meetings, most of the attendees were local residents, Main Street residents, and business owners. So the verbal comments, I believe that meeting was recorded by WKM. We did not go back and pull verbal comments from that meeting. I think you all three were in attendance, but basically there was either support for this change or I'm willing to give it a chance. I'm not sure, but I'm willing to give it a chance. There were two that I recall in opposition, and even one of those at the end was willing to give it a chance. Then Mr. Grody made his comments. Those comments are attached for you as well. He was in opposition to making a change. So Exhibit A that you have are maps of the striping plan, and that is a complete set all the way from Jefferson to the top of Hanover Hill. The sections that will be important are from Broadway all the way to actually to the incline bridge. That shows detail of how that change in striping will look. A couple of comments I will make about that is the transition area around the Broadway Street intersection will be important. It will actually start transitioning to a left turn only in the last half block on the east side of Broadway. That will start about Poplar Street and will transition into a left turn lane. And on the opposite side, the west side of that intersection, will do the same thing from the library to the stoplight, transitioning to a left turn lane. And I have requested that the architects redraw, you can tell by looking at this that I did it. I've asked the architects to redraw and include the dotted line left turn, east and west. I have witnessed a lot of people that don't know, especially if they're from out of town, when they're making a left-hand turn on that east-west, and even the north-south, but they don't know to go past the intersection and turn left. A lot of people are turning and going the wrong direction.
Sometimes they're taking a direct line
Right.
in front of oncoming traffic, and instead of, you know, working around each other.
Right. I've also witnessed several times on the north-south, people will come to make the left-hand turn to go east on Main, and once they make that turn, the intersection is so wide, they turn and they see a red light and they stop in the middle of the intersection. That happened last week. It happened to me once when I was coming through the intersection. I don't really want to add all 4 dotted line for the turns because it gets pretty confusing at that point. But I think at least if we do east-west, that will be helpful for people. That's where the bulk of the traffic is traveling anyway. So, I think that's it. You can definitely tell when you get a little farther back, the drawings that the architects have done. It's quite lovely. But their markings, their striping is actually much easier to see how it's gonna flow. I would mention on these drawings, the thing that is missing is that buffer zone between parking and driving lanes. They had not included that originally. They have these in there, updating them right now to include that. Whether that ends up being a bike lane or just a buffer area with hatch marks, hasn't really been decided yet, but that is missing from these drawings. So, and then I just wanted to also note, when you get west of the Craigmont intersection, from Craigmont to the Incline Bridge, there's already 3 lanes in some places as you're going to the bridge and coming off. We're just gonna keep that like the rest of that stretch and just do 3 lanes, 2 lanes with a turn lane in the middle to keep it simple for that area of the roadway as well. Happy to take any questions from you, and I would ask for your approval of changing the striping pattern in this 6-block area.
Mindy, when we had our Main Street Steering Committee meetings, and we had which were public meetings, and then we had the additional public meetings where we reached out to Main Street businesses, and then another meeting that night on the west end of town with Main Street residents or business owners or whoever wanted to attend.
Mm-hmm.
We had the project boards that laid out what you just laid out here, but there was also a lot of the data that was presented on those project boards.
Yes.
I just want to remind this board and the community, the data was very extensive that we evaluated. We looked at traffic volume. We looked at the road capacity going from a 4-lane to a 3-lane, which revealed we can still handle probably 50% increase in capacity than what we're experiencing in actual road volume. We looked at the truck traffic patterns that we had already worked a year ago on with ordinances, where we were already had started diverting a couple thousand trucks a month from Main Street to help protect the road and also use the bypass as it was created. And that truck traffic, on average, the weight of those trucks were 4 to 6 times our legal weight limit. So heavy truck traffic has been a real negative attribute of trying to maintain Main Street. We also looked at accident levels from Madison Police Department. So, and speed limits. So as we looked at speeding, or I should say the rate cars are going at different times during the day, often, particularly in the peak times, they are traveling over 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. And it's 30 miles on the east and west ends until you get into the central business district, and then the speed limit's 20 miles an hour. If anybody's ever sat on the corner of Broadway and Main Street for a cup of coffee, as the cars are heading east going 20 miles over the speed limit, when they cross that street, they're doing 50, 55 in a 20-mile zone. And that's happening all the time. And so there's a whole strategy here about safety, and also about better and improved traffic management. And the investment that we're going to be making here in repairing the road, about $1 million of repairs are being made to just bridge us to a major overhaul of that Main Street corridor all the way to the top of Hanover Hill in a few years. Part of that investment is not only the $1 million we're making now, but the additional resources that we're going to be adding for Madison Police Department to improve traffic management, traffic enforcement. So there's a whole strategy that goes into how do we make the area, particularly the 6-block area between stoplight to stoplight, that's a 4-lane highway that goes through residential, business, school, and church zones. How do we make that safer? All the data suggests where we start is to try to put this stretch of road on a diet, and it has been successfully deployed elsewhere in the state. In fact, NDOT is holding a public meeting next month for a stretch of Highway 31 where they're going to do exactly the same thing. Go from 4 lanes to 3 lanes with a middle turn lane. This is, when you look at traffic engineering, this is the approach, and notwithstanding a couple of community members' comments, we have used a lot of data to come to this conclusion over a year-long process. So I would hope that the board will approve the restriping plan today, and as we finish the maintenance on the road, we can do that restriping plan, and then we'll also capture additional data. That's the other thing too about this whole process is this isn't permanent. This is to get us to the major Main Street project that's going to happen around 2026 when federal highway monies are released to us.
I'd like to follow up on
Yep.
that, Mayor. We have the next meeting from the steering committee and regional architects on the longer term plan is we're scheduling a public meeting on that design plan, and we've actually pushed that back a little bit into later in October to, if you approve of these striping changes, to allow traffic to flow for a month or so before we ask for public comment. And I feel like that's the fair way to do it, to see how it actually works or doesn't work before we make any longer term decisions on it.
I mean, the one item that popped out in your report, man, is the less than 10-second time it takes to go from East Main to West Main with the new changes. I mean, that is, such a small amount of time for a whole lot of public safety,
Right.
especially with the school zones and those things. This has always been a real concern, but that much time, that much safety, I mean, we have to approve this.
And we'll also be addressing the crosswalks, because there are 2 intersections there that they do not have traffic signals. They are major crosswalks, one on Mill and one on Vine, and on the corner of Vine and Main you have the library, which sees a lot of traffic, and then on the corner of Elm has the library. Vine, we have businesses on both corners and a church. It's imperative that we deal with crosswalk safety, pedestrian safety, particularly as we are promoting our community as very pedestrian friendly, safe to walk. Now, again, we talk about how this kind of grows out. We also recently, through Redevelopment Commission, did a comprehensive sidewalk asset management plan, where we identified all of our bad sidewalks, and some of them are, not some of them, but a lot of them are downtown, and quite a few sections of them are right on Main Street. And so there's a whole safety element. When you think about public safety, it's not just about law enforcement. It is streets, sidewalks, crosswalks, traffic management. And it's very, very comprehensive, and I think Mindy's done a really good job of managing this whole process over the course of the past year. And also I want to thank all the volunteers who have participated in the public steering committees. Nicole, who's also working with our, from a planning perspective, working with our architects and engineers and designers, and then all those community members who have taken the time to participate in surveys and come to these public meetings and vocalize their concerns. And I would say everybody's largely in favor of moving forward with this plan. Board Member Carlo, do you have any comments or questions? We'll open it up to the floor if there's anybody here in the audience who would like to address the board on this topic before we take action on the request that Deputy Mayor McGee has asked for.
I think anybody that would come downtown on fourth Fridays, on Saturday afternoons, during the spring, summer, and fall, and to see the number of pedestrians and the number of vehicles that we have. I mean, Madison is a bustling town. There's weekends where, I mean, it's just, downtown is just packed. And the current traffic situation, with the number of pedestrians crossing the street, it's a dangerous situation with the speed of the vehicles and 4 lanes to cross. So I think safety aspects, pedestrian-wise, and the speed of the vehicles, I think it's a necessary thing to do.
You know, there was some concern expressed that when we have a couple of our larger festivals in town, that it would create some congestion. And that may be the case. We'll just have to manage through that. But I certainly wouldn't want to sacrifice year-round safety for a weekend or two of events. And if you look at how there are certainly events in nearby cities that are much larger than anything that we host. And some of them are in neighborhoods where you just slow down a little bit and it might take you a little longer, or you park a little sooner or further away and you walk to it. I think this is all manageable, and if it slows somebody down 30 seconds or a minute versus 10 or 15 seconds, what kind of inconvenience is that relative to the benefit of improved safety?
I think those issues could be worked out with planning with the police department in advance.
Yes.
Have maybe a police officer at key intersections. So I see
we
it
did that with Chautauqua.
as a potential problem, but it's not something that can't be overlooked. You know.
Right. We did that with Chautauqua. We started planning early with them on improved traffic management because we know what intersections generally create a lot of congestion and safety concerns. And so there's been a really good dialogue between the organizers of Chautauqua, the city, Madison Police Department, to make sure that we're managing traffic effectively there for safety purposes. Yes, sir, you want to identify yourself and make a comment?
Sheldon, Telegraph. No, I agree with everything. My only thing I'm wanting to ask about is the golf carts and all this.
Okay. So we're not changing anything with regard to our golf cart ordinance. They're still not permitted on Main Street.
Okay.
We do allow them to traverse across the community on the side streets, and they can cross Main Street at lighted intersections, and they can cross Highway 421 at a 90-degree angle to get up and down the hill. So nothing's changing with golf carts.
What about Telegraph Hill?
Telegraph Hill is county, and they have a countywide ordinance that allows golf carts and all-terrain vehicles.
I just want,
Yes.
and the age limit of golf carts, is that?
You have to have a driver's license in order to operate a golf cart.
That's what I want to
And
know.
there's a lot of things we can do, Shelby, to improve all that, because obviously we can't catch them all. Safety is important, and we do get some complaints occasionally where an operator of a golf cart isn't driving safely in the eyes of the person who is making the complaint. But we have not had any significant issues with golf cart safety. And they are low-speed vehicles, so they're not traveling very fast. to
Right.
begin with.
My concern, because I've seen a lot of kids driving them and whatnot, that, in that area up there, and I just wondered, how it's taking place down here.
Right.
I agree with everything you're
Yeah.
doing. It's, very hectic down here, and it's to slow people down. Right thing to do. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think most people does.
Right. I think generally,
Yeah.
everybody's in favor of what can we do to make this town a little safer, because we
just-
do have all the volume that Board Member Carla was talking about. Thank you, Shelby.
I just
Appreciate
had
it.
a lot of comments of people I know about the golf carts, you know, they're concerned about the young kids on them,
Gotcha.
whether they require seat belts and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Shelby.
One other thing I have on your summary, but I didn't mention it here, was parking. I've heard an awful lot of comments about us moving to angle parking. Just for the record, that has not been discussed, and no parking stripe changes are happening with this project.
Thanks for mentioning that, Mindy. I was getting ready to bring it up. There's a lot of misinformation out there coming
Yes.
from somewhere
Yes.
about the parking, and, I mean, I don't know, you know, watch these meetings. I wish we'd had a better turnout at the public meetings than we had, but this misinformation is getting out there somewhere, it's getting repeated, and it's not correct. The parking is not going to change,
Right.
so.
One attribute about the parking that is going to change, it's going to be safer to park on Main Street.
They will be
Because we are
wider.
creating a buffer zone, a little bit of a buffer area, and the road. Now, the width of the road isn't changing, but the number of lanes are gonna be changing. And so if you're, and as Dave and I both live on Main Street, it's dangerous to get in and out of your vehicle in the current state of traffic, because people will not slow down or move over. And this will allow a safer entrance and exit out of your vehicle on Main Street.
Both
And then
because
we're
of
also
the-
gonna be dealing with the Lydia Middleton traffic situation
Yeah.
separately.
Yeah, it'll be safer for parkers, because of the buffer, but also because of wider parking spots, which I think will be nice.
And every morning when I come out to get in my car, I don't have to worry whether my mirror has been taken off overnight.
I hope so.
I make a motion that we approve the changes to road striping, traffic management plan for Main Street.
I'll second that motion, Carl.
Okay. Board, is there any additional discussion or comments from anyone in the audience? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mindy. Keep up the good job.
Thank you, board.
And the rain is gonna delay us a little bit on finishing our
It
liquid
is.
asphalt.
Would you like me to give a quick update
Yes,
on
would
that
you please?
project? Yes. So we have finished all applications except for striping all the way through the west side of the Plum Street intersection. We have plumbed Craigmont to go, and then Craigmont to the Incline Bridge. We were only delayed one day due to weather, but other than that, we've had a couple of delays due to equipment or staffing or things like that. But other than those issues, it has gone very well, I think. We've had very little interruption from the public on driving where they shouldn't or walking where they shouldn't. The staff has managed that very well. So everything that we do is weather dependent. Obviously, they're not working today. I think the chances for rain are just as good tomorrow and Wednesday. So because it's Chautauqua week, we had asked them originally to be completed with just to wrap up any work they were doing on Main Street by Wednesday of this week, so that we didn't interfere with vendors coming in or visitors coming in. So we most likely will not work this week, because they would only have Thursday to work, and I think it would be better if we just call it for this week. And next week, we'll start with the west side of Plum to Craigmont. So that's where we are right now.
Mindy, is that schedule firm as far as delaying the project till Monday? The reason I ask is the fire company on West Main Street, we've had to make arrangements to relocate our
Yes.
fire truck.
Yes,
Otherwise, we would be locked in once the liquid asphalt was put down. So we made arrangements to relocate our fire engine during that time. So
Yes,
if the project's been delayed, then we can come back to our normal operation and then schedule our movement
Right.
for next Monday.
so I talked to, the owner of National Pavement Maintenance on Saturday, and his preference was not to come back and work for one day. I don't know what that means for them, you know, they get one tanker a day that's brought in for them to refill their tank with. I'm not sure what that process is, if they need to bring it in for one day. I can double check with him. Kenny Washer wanted to go ahead and do something on Thursday. I mean, I hate to lose a day of work as well. But, how about if I reach out to both Kenny and Gary and just get a consensus whether or not, if they have an opportunity to work on one day, if they do it, here's the risk. Things delay the start date. It's 2 coats, that second coat takes a while to dry. If there's any shade on the road, it takes a lot longer. So if the risk is that we wouldn't be able to get that road open like we intend to, on the section between Mill and Plum, we had to leave it closed overnight till about 5 in the morning because there just was too much shade in certain spots and it wouldn't dry. Plus they got a late start that day, so I would hate to have that happen on the Thursday overnight before Chautauqua.
Right.
That's my concern on trying to get one day's worth of work in. So would it be better for your fire company to go back to normal until Monday? Is it a big deal to change that, or would you prefer to go ahead and try and have us work on Thursday?
I think probably for us, it would be better to delay it,
Okay. Okay.
but, you know, I
Okay.
mean, we're flexible, we can
That's
work either
my
way. but-
preference. I just need to double check and make sure that I have consensus from Kenny and Gary on that, and then I can confirm with you. But and Hannah has been really good about sending updates through Nixle on what the schedule is for the day or the next couple of days. I will make sure that once we make that decision, that she gets that out, to let people know whether we will not be working at all this week, and then Monday, what section we'll pick up on.
Okay.
Okay?
Any additional questions for Mindy? Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Mindy, while you're there, I thought that, we did vote on that, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask.
You
if
did.
we I can't remember.
Yes,
We-
they did.
We
We
did.
did have a motion. Okay.
We had a motion, second.
All in favor, aye, okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye, again.
Aye.
We're covered.
We're double covered.
Yeah. I know that Chief Wallace is out, but I thought Major McKay was gonna be here to talk about the 2 part-time.
Yes, he may have
Police
gotten,
officers.
caught up in something. I'm happy to stay here and I can at least speak to
Okay.
this from the budget.
Let's talk about the program and the budget.
So, the part-time applications that you have are for, I believe they're both former officers, I'm sorry, I haven't
They are.
seen both of them, former officers from here. So one of the things that Chief Wallace wanted to explore was the opportunity to rehire accredited officers, whether they were from our department or not, that would work part-time. So we have approved that, or we're in the process of approving that in the budget for 2022. He wanted to go ahead and start that for 2021 for the rest of this year. We have money in the budget in the lit public safety account through the officers' overtime money to cover this, if approved. And these 2 officers have applied to work on a part-time basis.
Board of Public Works already approved the creation of the part-time program. And as Chief Wallace rightly indicated, this program is way better than forming your traditional reserve program. A reserve officer traditionally would only go through the pre-basic requirements. Here, by hiring police officers, former police officers with either the Madison Police Department or Jefferson County Sheriff's Department or any other agency, they still have all of their police credentials. And that and training, as you can see with these 2 applications, you know, 11 years history as a police officer with Dylan Barnes, and then Ben Flint, excuse me, Ben Flint, taser instructor, IELA, physical tactics instructor, certified canine handler. This is, I think, a fantastic opportunity for us to leverage up our full-time police resources, and I'll make a motion to accept both officers that are being recommended, Dylan Barnes, and for the public's public disclosure here, we have their full applications and the recommendations from Major McKay and Chief Wallace. So I'll make the motion we approve the hiring on a part-time basis for Benjamin Flint and Dylan Barnes as part-time police officers to leverage up the full-time resources we have.
Second the mayor's motion.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Move on to claims.
Mayor had an opportunity to review the claims. I'll make a motion that the claims be approved as submitted.
I will second David's motion.
Okay, any additional discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Under mayor's comments, got a couple of things. I'd like to start with a blight elimination plan. I also want to talk about our clean drinking water application and a couple of questions for Tony Sorrells, our street superintendent, who is here as well. So what you have before you is a 10-point blight elimination plan. We have been working with Nicole's group and through the budgeting process on how can we create an even greater effort toward blight elimination across the community. And as you know, there's a few things that are already operative that governs this effort. One is we have the PACE program, which acts as an incentive. A year ago, we changed the guidelines and put significantly more money behind the Preservation and Community Enhancement Program so that we could positively impact blight in our community by partnering with owners and investors who are investing in their own capital, leveraging up those dollars. And it has done a remarkable job across the community. As we talked earlier, the leverage ratio has been fantastic. We've done all of that without any demolition. So it is working for preserving historic properties and eliminating blight. An area where we've not been honestly very good at is the code enforcement side of things. And those two elements, incentives and enforcement, have to work together. And so I wanted you to know, and I want the community to know, that we are going to attack blight more aggressively in the coming months and year. If you recall, at the last Board of Public Works meeting, under the public comment section, Mrs. Patterson was here, and she was talking about the property we actually have on the slide up there on North Walnut Street. That was the site of a homicide. And I'll get into that in just a second, but I want to describe to you what blight is and why it's so important to deal with it. A blighted property is a physical space or structure that is no longer in acceptable or beneficial condition to its community. A property that is blighted has lost its value as a social good or economic commodity, or its functional status as a livable space. It's not inhabited. Blight is a stage of depreciation, not an objective condition, which conveys the idea that blight is created over time through neglect or damaging actions. So neglect and damaging action, right? Here we have a couple of instances on the top of that slide, and we have dozens of pictures we could share with you, but we just chose these two. We have a damaged property on the hilltop that's been in, literally it's probably 80% or more destroyed by fire and is in that condition. Below it is a property that's been in that state probably for about 15 years, as Mrs. Patterson was expressing, boarded up, abandoned, uninhabited, gone through several fires, unsafe structure. And the issue with blight across the community is that it generally attracts other negative behavior, whether it be people camping there, living there, or committing crimes in the area. And of course, the ultimate crime occurred with the homicide of an individual who was living in the back of that property. So I want to go through these 10 points because it starts with us as a community of being accountable for it and using the tools that we have. And we have plenty of tools, but we have been resource constrained. And what we're addressing in the budgetary aspects of our city is putting the resources so that we can deal with that element of it more effectively, because some property owners either can't afford to or are ambivalent about investing in maintaining their properties so that it is not blighting the neighborhood. And it's unfair to people that live in that area, own businesses in these areas, drive by there every day and know that the city is not doing anything about it. So we're going to do our best to continue our efforts to eliminate blight. And here are the 10 points. And it's on the slide up there. I think board members, you guys have one of these in your binders. I'm happy to share. Create an accountability partnership between the property owner, residents, and the city. That's the key thing there, is there is accountability. We are accountable to enforcing our ordinances, and a property owner is accountable for maintaining the property. Evaluate the ordinances for effectiveness. We have lots of governing ordinances with regard to blight. We have an unsafe buildings ordinance. There is a state statute that is an unsafe structures law. We also have a nuisance ordinance. We also passed an ordinance years and years ago that created an unsafe building fund so that we could take money from our annual budget and contribute to the fund so that we can clean up these properties. We need to be more assertive at doing so. Invest in training and additional resources. Dealing with blight's hard because there's a lot of legal hurdles you have to jump over. There are property rights you have to deal with, and lots of times it becomes a legal battle when all other efforts fail. Implement code enforcement platform for better management and community engagement. We're already working on how to better manage that. The first step that we've taken is to try to create an inventory of what are our blighted and nuisance properties across the community. The first cut at that identified approximately 100 properties that fell in the categories of blight or nuisance. And blight can be a nuisance property, unfit for human habitation, significantly tax delinquent, fire hazard, vacant and not up to code compliance, accumulation of trash and debris, lack of water, gas, or other utilities, abandoned property. We have all of that. And we deal with it every day, but not quite as effectively as we need to be. Number 5, educate the community about property maintenance benefits. We do not have a property maintenance ordinance. So we do not have a property registration requirement. We do not have a property inspection requirement for rental properties. So we are trusting property owners to do the right thing. But when that fails, we have to be able to enforce our ordinances so that we can eliminate the negative attributes in our neighborhoods. I talked a minute ago about creating an inventory of unsafe properties and log of nuisances. And then number 7, establish a plan with the property owners on abatement strategies and timetable. That's the partnership aspect of it. That's, in some instances, that's going to work. In other instances, it is not going to work. People are not going to, or can't. I don't want to say always not, but because sometimes they can't. They can't positively deal with the properties. Had a conversation not too long ago, someone had said, well, what should we do? And I said, well, invest in the property or sell it. But leaving in its current state and allowing it to continue to deteriorate and be a detriment to the neighborhood is not an acceptable strategy. I do not believe in mothballing, let's put it that way, to use a term, Do not believe in letting a deteriorated building just sit there hoping and wishing something will happen to it. We need to make code enforcement a priority when other methods have failed. Number 9, use our PACE and other grant programs to provide financial support and incentivize property owners. That part of our effort is working fabulously. And number 10, this is why we're here today with Board of Public Works and Safety. Report our progress to the Board of Public Works and Safety. Board, as a board member and as with you guys working here today, rarely are we talking about code enforcement efforts for blighted property. We're talking about PACE, which is good. We're approving funding where we're providing incentives, but all of us can drive by or walk by properties and that have been in the state for a very, very long time, and we've not had a real assertive or active way to approach it. I'll stop there. That's our 10-point plan. Could have shared with you a tremendous amount of numbers of pictures, and then we just want the community to really understand that we want to do something about this. Thank you. We want to do something about this. We are going to invest in full-time code enforcement resources. That's also been one of our inhibiting factors. I'll stop there and we'll talk about blight and what we've proposed here with you guys today. Happy to answer any questions from the board, or maybe the 10-point strategy says it all.
The mayor looks like a good strategy. And like you said, I think right now the PACE program is, I mean, it's working fantastically, so we just need to work with property owners and get them on board and see what can be accomplished.
Well, looking at item number 8, have our codes been reviewed? I mean, are they up to date? Are they something from 30 years ago?
We're going through and doing a review now, Carl. Mm-hmm. That's a really, really important part of it, because oftentimes we find that our ordinances have not really been updated to address the need. Like I said, we have the state statute, which is an unsafe building law that deals with unsafe buildings and unsafe premises, which is also a kind of a new phenomena we're dealing with across the community. Our unsafe building ordinance itself, the last time it was amended was in 1988, which was a really long time ago. And we have a nuisance health and safety ordinance, and there was some amendments to it in expanding the definition of nuisances in 2017. And it's really comprehensive. That part of it is. Nuisances often is thought of as kind of grass and trash is what we're talking about, trying to help maintain cleanliness on a property. But that's just one of probably a dozen descriptions of what is a nuisance. And this nuisance and unsafe structures, they go hand in hand, because anything that's an unsafe structure, it becomes a nuisance, particularly when it is abandoned, there's no water or sanitation at the property, it's uninhabitable, and there is no plan. And that's the other thing that's lacking in these properties. There's been no plan to do anything about it, other than just let it sit and continue to deteriorate. So we want this to be positive and work with property owners. And again, if we have more resources, we'll be able to do that. But we'll keep you informed. The other part of this is keeping the board informed and creating an accountability element where we need to come here, and our building inspector and our future code enforcement officer needs to come here and talk about our identified unsafe structures and nuisances and what we did about it in between meetings.
Mayor,
and how we manage it.
do we have an effective way to keep up on these structures and these nuisances as far as, I mean, some people are more cooperative than others, and sometimes it's the same people year after year after year, going back and getting their grass cut, their weeds cut in the summertime. You know, do we have an effective way to keep track of these?
I would clarify it or describe it as, it's okay. It's probably manageable. But number 4 up there is to create a platform, and there are platforms out there that we're looking at. Jefferson County just approved it. The town of Hanover is using the same platform. North Vernon uses the same platform. We are now looking at that platform that's going to help us better manage, create the inventory, better manage it, look for repeat offenders, track and document very much more effectively than we're doing now, which properties are the highest priorities, and start attacking them. So there's that whole infrastructure that we have to build out in addition to the resources to actually manage the initiative.
That was kind of what I was referring to, was the programs that Jefferson County and the town of Hanover have implemented here just recently. So if we were looking at maybe hopping on board.
We're looking at the same one, and there's benefits in that too when we're all using the same platform. So then we can really start exchanging information and managing it better. I'm happy to see Hanover and Jefferson County, see how important this is, and it is time for us to deal with this side of it. We've placed a lot of our emphasis on the nuisance, the trash and the weeds, and the incentive, so that we can avoid deterioration of our historic structures. And now this is a natural, I think this is a very, very natural evolution to, okay, this side of it's going really, really well. Now let's put the resources where they need to be, which is the enforcement side of things, which has been lagging.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that? There's nothing to approve here other than just informational for you and for the community to know that it's important. But we did have a couple of incidences in the last few weeks that highlight the importance of this. We had a homicide, and then we've also had a nuisance property that was directly created a situation where someone was injured walking on a public street because of the nuisance property. And so there's, again, it all comes back to a lot of the conversation we have in here today about public safety, and we can do better.
Well, it's a touchy subject when you get into people's property rights, and I mean, I hear quite a bit. You can't tell me what to do with my property, and so it's really a touchy subject with some people. So.
And we're very hesitant to tell people what to do with their property, but there's also boundaries. There's ordinances. We have the Historic District Board of Review that is, again, proactively working with property owners to give them guidance and advice on how to restore their properties. We have money that we're putting into the community to help offset the financial cost of it. It's a lot about public engagement, and I don't want to overemphasize the enforcement aspect of it, because it really is about better engagement and letting people know that there are options that they have. There are even properties that are in really, really deteriorated states. There's options that they have. But one option that's not acceptable as a community policy is doing nothing. And that has happened all too frequently across town for a very, very long time. And we're gonna do something. We're gonna add this into the things that we're doing that just makes community safer and cleaner, safer, and beautiful. Next thing I want to mention is our clean drinking water plan. We have talked about it a few times here, and we are underway with a new rate study part of what we were holding off on to finish our rate study for our water rates was the application for a grant with the State Water Infrastructure Fund. They announced last week their grants. We applied for $5 million to help offset the cost of this $15 million project. And we did not receive any grant monies. In fact, there were 500 applications and they only had enough money to fund approximately 22. So 4% of the applications were funded. And when you look at the parameters under which they made $100 million in money available to those 22 communities, it was communities that were significantly burdened by high costs of water and sewer rates, which Madison isn't, based on the parameters that they've established. We've also been asking for several months now for Jefferson County Commissioners to consider utilizing part of their ARPA money to help offset the cost of our drinking water project, because the city of Madison provides drinking water to 2/3 of Jefferson County. We asked them for $2.5 million, and I believe the only thing they've offered, I think, is about $100,000. We've asked them to reconsider that. We've not heard back from them. I'm presuming that the answer to that is no, because of the lack of dialogue occurring. So we're going to move forward with our rate study, get it completed. This board has already approved the design contract with Commonwealth, because one of the requirements that we have is that we have to be ready really to come out of the by the 1st of next year, be ready to start our project with design and permitting. So we've already invested the money there, but we need to now go ahead and finish our rates, because we're not going to get any additional support either from the state or Jefferson County. There's a round 2, but it's not until spring of next year, and we'll apply for round 2. But again, limited resources, high demand. It's happening all over the country. But the ARPA money is specifically, one of the Congress's intent was to use it for storm water and drinking water infrastructure. So we're evaluating all of our resources too, but we're going to finish the rate study. The next thing I want to talk about, and our street superintendent is here, I want to ask, I guess, or invite Tony Sorrells or Brian Jackson, our superintendent of utilities, if either of them have a report they want to make to the Board of Public Works on any matter before I keep going. Okay. Today it's raining. I know it's going to rain a few days this week. Great opportunity to make sure that we are inspecting drains and looking for water that might be trapped, making sure that we're not having water not drained properly. We still have an application with state for a stormwater grant. So as you know, we're working with the Army Corps of Engineers for future flood risk mitigation. We applied for a real modest amount, I think it was around $160,000 for stormwater, and they've not yet announced that. They're still several weeks behind in making their announcements. I'm sure the demand for those are going to be precious as well, or high demand and with limited resources. But we're still waiting to hear back from them. But we've already engaged with the Corps of Engineers for flood. But as it rains, it's a really good time to drive around and see where our drainage isn't working very well, particularly making sure that our inventory of storm drains are being properly maintained, so we don't have any pooling, unnecessary pooling. Fortunately, we're not having large downpours over an extended period of time, but we need to keep looking at that. Yes?
Because you're talking about storm drains, you sparked my memory. I just talked to Tony about it. When they were doing the liquid road application on Main Street, they put cardboard down on some of those drains to keep the product from going down, and I think they forgot to pull a couple of them when they were done. So I just asked Tony to have someone check those. I know they've already pulled one at Mill, but I know we've had a couple of reports this morning of drains not draining on Main Street, and I think that might be why. So just FYI, we're gonna go back and double check all those, make sure the cardboard gets pulled out.
Okay, thank you. I want to mention one last thing under Mayor's comments, and that is, it's also safety related. But we have a beautiful city with lots of trees and shrubs and canopies, you know, over our sidewalks. But Tony, we need to also be looking for those where they're obstructing the sidewalk. And there are several places where you have to walk off the sidewalk or even walk into the street because the canopy of the tree or the shrub is either too low or pushing you out. And we need to be driving around and looking for those too. I can point a couple out to you that I saw this morning. And again, that's all safety related. One of the accidents that occurred with a community member a weekend or so down on Poplar Street was because of overgrowth on a property that was abandoned, unoccupied, out of town owner, where they had to walk off the sidewalk in order to pass that property. We just need to be really assertive and manage this, and we see it, do something about it. But there's multiple instances where, you know, our sidewalks aren't passable.
Also, on that point, Mayor, where the growth is obstructing signs, especially at intersections, so we need to be aware of those too, so, situations.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. It's a lot to do. I mean, we have 9 square miles of city and lots of open space that has to be maintained. And maybe now's a good time to get an update on our DLC crews for the board. Mindy or Tony? We've been waiting for about 1.5 years for some good news.
Come out today.
And here comes the Morton C-Man.
So, we got a DOC crew this morning. They were down there at 7. Of course, with the weather, they couldn't do anything outside, so the girls are getting familiar with the weed eaters. Hopefully, dries up, they'll be doing some mowing for us and cleaning the equipment and learning how to put string on them and stuff, and learning that. We had a tree fall on Hanover Hill. They came out and helped us clean that up. But,
Was that today?
Yeah.
Or recently? Okay.
yeah, this morning. So, I feel good about one crew. Hopefully, COVID doesn't affect us anymore like it did last time. After 2 weeks, I think they had to go back in. I think we'll be getting a second crew maybe 3 or 4 weeks maybe from now. So, we'll be able to do a lot more.
We really appreciate them, and there's a lot to maintain, and particularly in this labor environment, they're needed now more than ever.
Yeah, they do a good job for us.
Get a crew just in time for the leaf season.
There you go. Yeah.
How many tons of leaves, you had to bring up leaves, right? I totally forgot about the leaves.
It's
How
that
many
time of
tons
year.
of leaves do we actually remove? I mean, it's
It's
amazing how many
yeah,
tons of leaves.
hundreds of tons, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of leaves.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, John. Or anything else before we move on to public comment? All right, anybody here would like to address the board? Our next, did you raise your hand? Shut, okay. Our next meeting will be Monday, October the 4th, 11:30 a.m.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second that motion?
All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Thanks, everyone.